try to give him tough love, but God, you just never see the OD coming.
Corey betrayed my trust, Rick Harrison sobbed, his voice breaking the silence in the cold, dark room. The moment the harsh life sentence was handed down, the pain imprisoned Rick behind cold iron bars, and bitter tears rolled down his weathered face. From that moment on, the battle for the Harrison family's massive $20 million fortune officially erupted. The renowned Pawn Stars empire, the famous gold and silver pawn shop, and Rick's numerous valuable real estate holdings became a tempting target for his children and the silent shareholders, pulling the family into a vortex of greed and betrayal. However, this was only the beginning of the tragedy. Before facing this brutal sentence, Rick Harrison had already endured painful legal battles sparked by his own mother, and he had suffered the deepest agony when he witnessed his beloved son fall into the cruel grip of fentanyl addiction. So, what led this powerful man to the edge of the abyss, forcing him to face the harshest legal consequences? How did his fame and wealth affect his character, leading to the tragic end behind bars? Join us as we uncover the truth through this video. 1. Fame and glory. Las Vegas, the city of dreams, is a place where few would expect an inspiring story to come not from the famous casinos, but from an old pawn shop on Las Vegas South Boulevard. The owner of this shop, Rick Harrison, is not only a diligent businessman, but also a living symbol of resilience and an unwillingness to give up. His journey from a boy suffering from epilepsy to a reality TV star and the owner of the largest pawn shop in America is a remarkable story that has earned him the admiration and respect of many. However, that is now a thing of the past. Rick Harrison was born in 1965 in Lexington, North Carolina, into a middle-class military family. At just 8 years old, Rick began experiencing severe seizures, a condition that often required him to be hospitalized and forced him to temporarily halt all physical activities. Unable to play sports like other kids, Rick found solace in books, particularly history and science. He devoured books about wars, great leaders, and ancient inventions, unknowingly gaining knowledge that would later become invaluable in his career, helping him discern authenticity and assess the value of hundreds of antiques in his business. Later, the Harrison family moved to San Diego and eventually settled in Las Vegas, where fate would lead Rick to start his career. In 1981, his father, Richard the Old Man Harrison, a strict military veteran, opened a small shop specializing in coins and antiques. At that time, Rick was just 16, but he decided to drop out of school and work full-time. Without a high school diploma or a college degree, Rick chose the hardest path, working tirelessly to build a career from scratch. During the day, he worked in the shop with his father, and at night he towed repossessed cars to earn extra income. "I had nothing but determination and negotiating skills," Rick once shared. Rick's dream was not limited to selling coins or ancient paintings. He wanted to open a proper pawn shop, a place where customers could pawn everything from old wedding rings, rare stamps, to samurai swords or Civil War-era pistols. However, the laws in Las Vegas posed a significant challenge. Since 1955, the city had only issued pawn shop licenses when the population increased. Rick refused to give up. For many years, he persisted in calling the city's statistics office every week, simply asking one question: what is the current population? Finally, in 1989, when the population of Las Vegas reached 250,000, the license was granted. Gold and Silver Pawn Shop officially became a legitimate pawn shop, marking a major turning point in Rick Harrison's life. From a small shop of only a few hundred square feet, Gold and Silver Pawn Shop gradually expanded, lending approximately $3 million per year and generating over $700,000 in interest by 2005. However, Rick was not just a successful businessman. He also had a keen instinct for media. After the shop made a brief appearance on the show Insomniac with Dave Attell in 2003, Rick had a bold idea: to turn the pawn shop into a reality TV show. He relentlessly contacted production companies, pitched his idea, and faced countless rejections, until Left Field Pictures agreed to collaborate. In 2009, Pawn Stars officially aired on the History Channel. The show quickly became a television phenomenon. With its engaging storytelling, tense negotiations, and a wide array of genuine historical artifacts, Pawn Stars satisfied the curiosity and nostalgia of millions of viewers. Rick, along with his father, the old man, his son Corey, and his close friend Chumley, became familiar faces on American television. In just a few years, the number of customers visiting the shop skyrocketed from 70 people per day to over 5,000 on peak days. Rick earned around $15,000 per episode, and by 2023, the show had reached 21 seasons with 633 episodes, an achievement few reality shows could match. However, fame came with many challenges. The growing popularity gradually led Rick down a path of downfall, and his tragedy began to unfold. 2. The FBI's unexpected raid and discovery. Early in the morning on April 8th, as the neon lights of Las Vegas gradually faded after an endless night, a convoy of armored vehicles from the FBI, the IRS, and representatives from the U.S. Department of Justice quietly surrounded Rick Harrison's mansion in the upscale Spanish Hills neighborhood. Everything unfolded silently, with no sirens or noise. With just a press of an electronic lock, the door opened, revealing a world that the public had only ever seen through the dazzling lights of reality television. But behind those lights was a maze of lies, fraud, and stolen antiques from all over the world. The raid was not a coincidence. It was the result of nearly 6 months of undercover investigation, sparked by an innocuous-sounding complaint from a woman named Carla Menendez, a history teacher at Santa Fe High School in New Mexico. In February 2024, Carla visited Las Vegas during her spring break. A loyal fan of the show Pawn Stars, she couldn't pass up the opportunity to visit the gold and silver pawn shop, which she had once called America's Library of Alexandria. There, she was captivated by a katana that was claimed to be a family heirloom of a loyal samurai under the command of Oda Nobunaga, dating back to the 15th century. Rick Harrison, who was present at the store that day, personally confirmed the authenticity of the sword. "You're probably the luckiest person to walk into my shop this year," he said with the familiar smile that had won over millions of viewers. The item was priced at $48,000, accompanied by an appraisal certificate and a guarantee of 100% authenticity, no disputes. Carla withdrew all of her savings, along with a bank loan, to purchase the sword. However, just a few months later, at a history conference in Kyoto, a Japanese expert not only declared the sword to be a modern counterfeit, but also raised the possibility that its design matched a piece stolen from the Osaka Cultural Museum in 2016, a theft that had never been solved. Carla returned to the U.S. deeply disappointed. When she contacted Gold and Silver to request a refund, she was denied. All the promises Rick had made to her were now nothing more than the generous smile that had initially attracted her. But what made her even more suspicious was the detail. Rick had asked her to transfer the money to an account in Belize to receive a 10% VAT discount. This detail, combined with an email confirmation from an anonymous address and a duplicate invoice number, caught the attention of the FBI. The investigation had quietly begun from that moment. Carla, acting as the key witness, provided not only invoices and emails but also recordings of her calls with the store assistant. One of the recordings revealed Rick openly saying, "We have many ways to keep unique items off the books. Only regular customers get to know." From these clues, FBI agents proceeded to raid Rick's house for inspection. The raid lasted for over 11 hours. Dozens of boxes containing documents, hard drives, and digital storage devices were taken from the mansion. However, the most astonishing discovery was made in the basement, hidden behind a false wooden wall after the bookshelf, which could only be opened with a fingerprint and retina scanner. Inside was a secret museum with its temperature and humidity strictly controlled, a place showcasing over 60 stolen artifacts, including a limited edition Gutenberg Bible, missing from the saint, Gallon Library in Switzerland in 2011, Winston Churchill's pocket watch, stolen from the British Museum in 2009, an original bronze statue of the goddess Isis, once part of the Cairo Museum, reported missing after the 2013 unrest, and a Stradivarius violin worth 12 million USD, once owned by a French artist who disappeared in 2006. Many items still bore museum labels. Some had their serial numbers erased, but UV traces remained. An FBI conservation expert confirmed, "This is not just financial crime, it's also an organized international antiquities trafficking network." Furthermore, evidence of tax evasion and fraud exposed Rick's reprehensible actions. The seized financial records revealed that Rick Harrison and several partners had operated a network of undocumented transactions amounting to more than 38 million USD within just 5 years. The money was funneled through shell companies in Belize, Luxembourg, and the Cayman Islands. Many items in the store had never been recorded in the sales ledger, meaning hundreds of customers had unknowingly bought artifacts without clear provenance or paperwork, which could lead to retroactive tax claims. 3. The harshest sentence for the criminal. The Federal Court of Nevada. All eyes were on courtroom number 3. The trial of Rick Harrison, the central figure of the reality TV show Pawn Stars and co-owner of Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, officially began after many months of investigation, arrests, and charges. Fans who once admired Rick for his vast knowledge and sharp negotiating skills were now stunned as they watched him walk into the courtroom in a light gray suit, his face no longer carrying the confident demeanor he was known for on television. Right from the first hearing, the federal prosecutor presented a shocking indictment with 11 charges, ranging from organized money laundering, tax evasion, and federal fraud, to trafficking in stolen goods across borders. According to Ms. Klein, Rick Harrison is not just an antique dealer. He had been running a sophisticated smuggling network disguised as a popular TV show. She emphasized that his media fame was the perfect cloak for Rick to hide his criminal activities for nearly a decade. In the early days of the trial, the prosecution presented a series of physical and financial evidence collected during the raid of Rick's mansion in August. In court, the FBI agent described a basement where Rick had hidden over 37 stolen artifacts from museums in Europe and Asia. Experts from Interpol and the British Museum confirmed that at least 22 of these items were listed as internationally stolen treasures. In addition to the artifacts, a key point in the indictment was the underground financial system Rick had set up. A chain of shell companies in Belize, anonymous bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, and unreported cash transactions totaling millions of dollars. A quote from an internal email cited by the prosecution sent shockwaves through the courtroom. "Clean up the records for that item. Label it from a private collection in California. The foolish customers won't suspect anything." Carla Menendez, a key witness in the case, took the stand with a trembling voice. She recounted her visit to Gold and Silver in 2023, where she spent $135,000 to buy an antique Japanese sword, advertised as a Edo period katana from 1650. However, she later discovered that the sword was listed among the stolen items from a museum in Osaka, Japan. Carla filed a report with the FBI, becoming the catalyst for the investigation. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I trusted Rick because he was a celebrity, appearing on television every night. I never thought I would be deceived by the very person I trusted." Even though Rick's defense lawyer tried to argue by describing him as a businessman buried under a mountain of paperwork and unable to control all transactions, he argued that Rick was not directly involved in handling the items and fully trusted the team of appraisers the shop hired externally. Franks also asserted that there is no specific evidence proving that Rick knew the illegal origins of the artifacts. However, the prosecutor immediately presented a recording from an internal phone call in which Rick laughed loudly and said, "If customers ask too much, I'll just say it was my grandfather's stuff. Who's going to verify that?" After 9 days of intense debate, with the involvement of 43 witnesses and over 150 pieces of documentary evidence, the jury delivered their verdict on the evening of October 14th. They unanimously found Rick guilty of 9 out of 11 charges, including offenses like trafficking stolen property across state lines, federal fraud, and organized money laundering. Only 2 lesser charges, related to business license violations, lacked sufficient evidence for a conviction. When the verdict was read, Rick remained silent, showing no emotion. However, in a brief moment afterward, he turned to look at his son, Corey Harrison, who had been sitting silently throughout the trial, and a tear rolled down his cheek. 3 days later, during sentencing, the judge imposed the maximum sentence on Rick, one that could not be pardoned, and ordered him to return all stolen artifacts. Mr. Harrison not only broke the law, Judge Roswell stated in court, he exploited the trust of the public and the media to create a facade for his criminal activities. Immediately following the sentence, social media erupted. Pawn Stars, the show that had aired over 600 episodes, was removed from online platforms by the History Channel within 24 hours. Numerous collectors across the U.S. began reviewing the items they had purchased from Rick's store, with some proactively contacting authorities to verify their legality. Meanwhile, the people of Las Vegas, the city where the gold and silver pawn shop had once been an essential tourist attraction, remained stunned and in disbelief. The trial was over, but its aftermath continued to resonate. For many, Rick Harrison had once been a symbol of knowledge, a figure of honesty in the chaotic pawn business. But this trial had exposed everything. Rick's story had now become not just a personal tragedy, but also a warning that even those we see on TV every day may be hiding a dark secret behind their smiles that no one could have imagined. 4. Estimated net worth of $20 million. After many years of working at the pawn shop and becoming a familiar face on the reality TV show Pawn Stars, Rick Harrison is now believed to have a net worth of approximately $20 million. The majority of his wealth comes from the gold and silver pawn shop, a famous pawn store located in Las Vegas, Nevada, which he co-owns with other members of his family. This business not only serves the buying and selling needs of local residents, but has also become a popular tourist attraction, thanks to the show's wide reach. It draws thousands of visitors each year who come to buy, sell, or simply explore the shop's collection of unique and unusual items. High-value transactions, especially those involving antiques, rare jewelry, and historical artifacts, have made up a significant portion of Rick's wealth. As Pawn Stars gained more popularity, Rick's business expanded as well. He invested $400,000 to renovate and enlarge the store's display area by about 2/3, bringing the total usable space to 15,000 square feet. In addition to upgrading the physical space, Rick also built a gym directly above the shop to provide a better fitness environment for employees, showing his concern not only for business growth, but also for the well-being of his staff. To meet growing customer demand and accommodate the filming of the show, the store hired nearly 30 new employees, a clear indication of the business's increasing scale and momentum. In the beginning, the shop sold a wide variety of merchandise, but Rick quickly recognized a shift in customer preferences toward products like jewelry, luxury watches, and valuable art pieces. His sharp business instinct is best summed up by one of his well-known quotes. "You've got to have what the customer wants, because if you don't, you won't have any customers at all." Before gaining fame on television, the store saw only about 70 visitors a day. However, once Pawn Stars became a TV phenomenon, foot traffic surged. In October 2010, the store welcomed over 1,000 customers per day. By 2015, that number had risen to around 4,000 daily visitors, and on peak days, it could reach as many as 5,000. The sudden rise to fame not only boosted the shop's success dramatically, but also turned it into a must-visit spot for tourists and fans from around the world. The huge customer volume translated into significant revenue growth, with annual sales ranging from $8 million to $25 million, far exceeding the store's performance before the show aired. However, fame came with its own set of challenges. Rick once spoke about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the business. "Before the pandemic hit, I had an average of 3,000 customers a day. Then COVID came, and in April 2020, I had to pay out $325,000 in wages while bringing in only $48,000 in revenue. Honestly, the entire area felt like a ghost town." Nevertheless, the business quickly bounced back after the hard times. The number of core staff members grew from 40 to 250, and in 2023 alone, the company hired about 5% more employees. On average, each staff member generated approximately $200–800 in revenue, reflecting both operational efficiency and the ability to handle massive customer traffic. Another quote from Rick Harrison captures his relentless entrepreneurial spirit. "Any business that's not growing is eventually dying." It's this mindset that has allowed his store not only to survive but to thrive, adapting to the demands of TV fame and the constantly evolving market. Recognizing the enormous potential from the steady stream of foot traffic pouring into his famous pawn shop each day, Rick Harrison decided to expand his business empire by launching Pawn Plaza in 2015. This two-story retail complex, situated right next to the iconic gold and silver pawn shop, was designed in the distinctive style of a container park. The space offers visitors a vibrant mix of shopping, dining, and entertainment experiences. Featuring a variety of restaurants, attractions, and retail booths, Pawn Plaza quickly became an ideal destination where guests could extend their visit after exploring the pawn shop, while also generating steady income for the businesses operating there. To turn this ambitious idea into reality, Harrison made a significant investment, estimated between $50,000 and $70,000, dedicated solely to marketing efforts. His promotional strategy was multifaceted, incorporating charitable initiatives, event hosting, public relations, and traditional advertising methods. A series of special events were organized to draw public attention to Pawn Plaza, including media meet and greets, promotional taxi driver tours, weekend NASCAR appreciation events, regular comedy nights, and enticing promotional programs. Thanks to its prime location right next to the renowned pawn shop, the plaza consistently attracted a high volume of daily visitors, which translated into substantial financial gains for the businesses based there. In 2011, Rick Harrison published his memoir titled License to Pawn: Deals, Steals, and My Life at Gold and Silver. The book quickly achieved great success, climbing to number 22 on the New York Times bestseller list. In this work, Harrison offers a heartfelt and vivid recount of his life journey, from a challenging childhood to the major milestones of his career. The book also unveils a number of unique business insights and shares a collection of engaging and at times humorous stories from the fascinating world of pawn dealing that he has been immersed in for years. Beyond his traditional business ventures, Rick Harrison also skillfully leveraged his reputation as a precious metals expert to land high-value endorsement deals. He became the spokesperson for American Hartford Gold, one of the leading precious metals distributors in the United States. In these promotional campaigns, he encouraged consumers to protect their retirement savings by investing in physical gold and silver as a safeguard against inflation. Additionally, in January 2014, Harrison signed on as the face of the Micro Touch 1 razor and appeared in a series of television commercials promoting this men's personal care product. These endorsement deals not only brought in lucrative revenue streams, but also reflected Harrison's deep understanding of the markets he engages with. In 2019, Rick Harrison launched an upscale gallery called Rick Harrison's High-End Collection at the Grand Canal Shops located within the Venetian Resort. This marked a significant milestone, reflecting the brand's impressive growth and expansion into the high-end market. All these projects have greatly contributed to the estimated net worth of Rick Harrison, which is around $20 million. He also currently owns at least one primary property in Las Vegas, Nevada, where he lives and works daily. While Harrison has not publicly disclosed specific details about his house, several sources describe it as a modern mansion, fitting the lifestyle of a person with a multi-million-dollar net worth. The house is said to be spacious, featuring several bedrooms, a separate entertainment area, and a dedicated space to display his favorite collectibles. Further information suggests that this mansion is worth several million USD. In addition, public records reveal that someone named Rick Harrison has been involved in buying and leasing commercial real estate worth over $70 million since 1996. These real estate deals also play an important role in the overall value of his assets. As Harrison has casually shared about his investments, I do a little bit of everything outside of pawn. This diversified investment strategy has proven effective, with his current net worth estimated to be around $9 million. Not only is Rick Harrison passionate about his business ventures, but he also has a particular fondness for vehicles, especially classic cars and luxury models. While he doesn't frequently show off his collection on social media, several episodes of Pawn Stars have revealed this interest of his. Harrison has mentioned owning a number of vintage Chevrolet models and a few sports cars that have been customized to his personal taste. According to sources from sites like Hot Cars and Motorious, Rick's car collection may consist of anywhere from 5 to 10 vehicles, with a total value reaching several $100,000. Moreover, in various episodes of the show, he often appraises vintage cars brought into the store, showcasing his in-depth knowledge of the classic car market. His garage is described as spacious, enough to store and maintain the vehicles he treasures. However, compared to other millionaires, Rick's car collection is considered modest, focusing more on quality rather than quantity. As an expert in antiques, Rick Harrison possesses an impressive personal collection, including many items with significant historical and financial value. On Pawn Stars, he has shared his interest in rare books, vintage watches, valuable coins, and historically significant weapons. A notable example is when he purchased a 16th century book, which he called one of his favorite items.
These items are not only valuable in monetary terms, often ranging from tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they also hold special meaning for Rick, who has a deep passion for history. Additionally, the gold and silver pawn shop houses many unique artifacts that Rick may keep for himself, such as Civil War memorabilia or antique jewelry. While he has not publicly disclosed the full extent of his collection, it is believed that Rick owns hundreds of items, which could make up a significant portion of his current wealth. This does not include items that have been stolen, whose exact value remains undetermined. Beyond the pawn business and investments in real estate, Rick Harrison is also known to have invested in a variety of other fields to maintain and grow his wealth. One of his most notable investments is in the Pawn Stars brand itself. He and his family have expanded the brand through products like t-shirts, mugs, and memorabilia, which are sold both in-store and online. Furthermore, Rick has invested in small businesses in Las Vegas and participates in the stock market. He divides his investment portfolio into 3 parts: 10% in gold and silver, 80% in blue-chip companies, and the remaining 10% in venture capital investments. This cautious financial allocation highlights his calculated approach and sharp business acumen. 5. Who benefits? As soon as Rick Harrison, the irreplaceable face of Pawn Stars, was convicted and arrested, the chain of events not only severely impacted the antique business empire he had built, but also disrupted a part of American pop culture that had existed for over a decade. As the soul of the show, Rick's sudden absence created a huge void, one that could not be filled, a lack that was both financial and emotional. First and foremost, Pawn Stars itself, without him, had to find a way to adapt and continue with new faces. The episodes without Rick were poorly received, and the ratings dropped significantly. In the first few months after the news of Rick's arrest spread, viewership dropped by nearly 30%. It wasn't just the TV show that was affected. The gold and silver pawn shop also faced difficulties. Although Rick hadn't been appearing regularly at the counter in recent years, his image was still a key factor in attracting tourists. When the news of his arrest spread, the number of customers visiting the shop dropped significantly, not just because the curiosity was gone, but also because the legal allegations surrounding him led many people to feel uneasy. The image of the shop, which had once become a cultural symbol, was now overshadowed by doubt and scandal. Rick transferred all his assets and control of his empire to Corey Harrison, his biological son. Corey had worked at the shop since he was 9 years old and had been trained by Rick to take over the business over the years. He was also one of the main faces of the TV show, widely known by the public, and a vital part of the Pawn Stars brand. However, this sudden handover placed Corey in a difficult position. He had to not only maintain the staff, but also protect the brand's reputation. In addition to the pawn shop, Rick Harrison also owned several commercial properties in Las Vegas.
valued at over 70 million USD from transactions conducted since 1996, according to public records. This portion of the assets was not directly linked to the TV show or the Pawn Stars brand, and it too was passed on to Corey Harrison. However, after the news broke that Rick Harrison was convicted and officially sentenced to prison, not only was his family shaken, but the entire network of interests related to gold and silver pawn shop also began to unravel. The shareholders who had quietly stood behind the scenes and invested in the rapid growth of the Pawn Stars show suddenly stepped into the spotlight. They announced they would sue Rick Harrison for secretly transferring control of assets and business shares to his son, Corey Harrison, without consulting the board or adhering to the profit-sharing terms in the original contract. In their view, this was no longer the action of a father trying to protect his family wealth, but a deliberate move to manipulate shared assets in order to retain power within the family. Some shareholders even accused Rick of engaging in opaque activities before his imprisonment, such as restructuring shares, transferring income from the television show, and external ventures like Pawn Plaza, real estate investments, and spokesperson contracts to his personal name or to close relatives, causing investors to lose all the profits that rightfully belonged to them. According to a former financial advisor of Rick, the financial records showed suspicious signs of opacity. Now that Rick is facing legal consequences, a series of civil lawsuits are being prepared, with the aim of forcing Corey Harrison to return the control of the shared assets until a court ruling is made. The peaceful days at Gold and Silver Pawn Shop have truly come to an end. And behind that famous red brick wall, a quiet but fierce power struggle is unfolding. The wealth that was once Rick Harrison's pride, ranging from the famous Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, the bustling Pawn Plaza, to the multi-million-dollar antique collection, has now become the very reason for his ultimate suffering. In the early days of his imprisonment, Rick often found himself crying when he thought about the fortune he had built up over decades, now being torn apart by those closest to him. "I just wanted to keep it all for the family," he once said, his voice choked with emotion, during a hearing. But now, his family was no longer the place of peace he had once thought it to be. Corey Harrison, the son Rick trusted to take over the business, not only failed to preserve the legacy peacefully, but also became the focal point of fierce disputes. Family members, even those who had supported Rick behind the scenes in building the Pawn Stars empire, began speaking out, demanding their share of the assets, accusing Corey of seizing power and monopolizing the inheritance. Family gatherings had now become a cold battleground, where anger and tears replaced words of affection. The question was raised: who will inherit Rick's vast fortune? However, the answer remains uncertain. And so we turn to Rick's personal tragedy, as he has endured the death of his father, lawsuits from his mother, and most recently, the loss of his son. 6. Personal tragedy: a lawsuit from mother and the death of his son. Before being sent to prison, Rick Harrison had already experienced several other painful tragedies in his life. His mother, 81-year-old Joanne Harrison, shocked the public when she filed a civil lawsuit against her son in 2022. According to court documents, Joanne accused Rick of mismanaging the family's assets and deliberately concealing financial information related to Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, where she owned a 49% stake after the death of her husband, Richard "Old Man" Harrison, in 2018. She claimed that she was denied access to the accounting books related to over $500,000 in cash and silver left by her husband, and sought a temporary restraining order to prevent Rick from cutting her monthly payments. The lawsuit listed a number of defendants, including Rick, the pawn shop, and related companies like Harrison Properties. While Rick was living a celebrity lifestyle, Joanne had to worry about her monthly medical and living expenses, creating a heartbreaking contrast between mother and son. Her lawsuit, alleging breach of contract, listed several defendants, including Rick Harrison, Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, Harrison Properties, and Joe Rich Properties. Tensions escalated when Joanne filed for a temporary restraining order in March 2022, aiming to prevent Rick from continuing to cut her monthly payments and conceal family assets. The temporary restraining order stated, "While Rick enjoys the comfortable life of a celebrity, tightly controlling all family businesses and finances, Joanne lives in fear, unsure if she will have enough resources to cover her significant medical and personal expenses each month. The most controversial issue in the lawsuit involved Joanne transferring a majority of her shares in the pawn shop. Court documents indicate that throughout her 58-year marriage to her husband, Richard Harrison, they had maintained control over most of their business ventures. The lawsuit claims that Rick convinced his mother to transfer 51% of her ownership in the pawn shop when she was hospitalized around 2000 or 2001, a time when Joanne said the transfer occurred shortly after she woke up from a coma and was not fully aware of her actions. The signing of this ownership transfer agreement marked a significant turning point in the power structure of the Harrison family business, giving Rick control over what would later become a multi-million-dollar empire. This moment was particularly significant as it happened nearly a decade before the Pawn Stars show reached the peak of its success. The program's explosion in popularity significantly increased the value of the business, making the issue of share ownership more important than ever for all involved. The current legal challenge from Rick Harrison's mother could greatly impact his estimated $20 million net worth. If the court rules in favor of Joanne, Rick's control over gold and silver pawn shop, the foundation of the entire business empire he has built, could be severely shaken. Before facing prison time, the Harrison family endured a devastating shock with an irreplaceable loss. The tragic death of Adam Harrison caused deep pain to his loved ones. Adam Harrison, the 39-year-old son of the famous entrepreneur Rick Harrison, passed away in Las Vegas. This tragedy once again highlights that, despite achieving considerable financial success, families cannot avoid personal losses that far surpass any material wealth. The Clark County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed that Adam Harrison was found unconscious at a guest house in Las Vegas, where he resided, on January 19, 2024. The medical examination revealed that his cause of death was due to fentanyl and methamphetamine poisoning, and it was ruled as an accidental overdose.
In an emotional interview with Graham Benninger, published in March 2025, Rick Harrison shared heartbreaking details about his son's battle with addiction. He tearfully recounted, "At the age of 20, the kid started having issues with drugs, and I had to send him to rehab many times. Every time he made great progress, but then he relapsed. You hear the same story from millions of people. His condition got worse, and clearly it wasn't heroin, but a little fentanyl that killed him." Unlike his two brothers, Corey and Jake, Adam never appeared on the show Pawn Stars. His sudden death prompted Rick Harrison to speak out strongly about the growing drug crisis in America. He expressed his frustration, saying, "The fentanyl crisis in this country needs to be taken seriously. It seems to be flowing across the borders with no action being taken. We have to do better." Rick Harrison, the pawn shop mogul who turned old items into national television treasures, has ultimately had to pay the price. After the glitz and glamour, the million-dollar deals, and the sharp remarks on television, the prison door closed behind him. The empire Rick spent his entire life building, from gold and silver pawn shop, the Pawn Plaza complex, a chain of real estate investments, to his multi-million-dollar personal collection, has now fallen into the hands of others. Corey Harrison was forced to take over, not in a glorious way, but to salvage the legacy that was slowly crumbling. Although Rick's assets were estimated to be worth $20 million, they have now been divided. Part of them is frozen, some are tied up in legal disputes, and the remainder is what Corey and his loyal team are struggling to hold on to. What do you think about Rick Harrison's fate? Will Pawn Stars be able to survive without him? Or is this the end of a reality TV icon? Please like the video if you find this story thought-provoking, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with stories from Hollywood.